This is I Love Black People Radio on H.U.R. Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are.
And again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on another wonderful journey of I Love Black People. Today, we've been super blessed to have a brother, a friend, someone that I've come of age with, who's been a mentor, a guide for much of my most vulnerable days of my life. And I'm so thankful that God provided him as a safe travel and safe passage for me in this wonderful life. Our brother, your brother, good brother, Cleveland Gibson. Welcome to I Love Black People.
Well, thank you very much, Sinclair. It's my pleasure to be here, brother. We went through it all together, and you know what? If I had to do it all over again, I most definitely would. Wouldn't even hesitate.
Well, let me just tell you, if I could do it all over again, I would save you the stress and strain I gave you. But I'm definitely appreciative. I want to give the audience kind of like a context, because we're really focusing in on global Black professionals from all over the world, and you are one of the few people I know that have taken that global perspective from philosophy or a academic conversation and literally been there, done it, and have been doing it for now years. Now, after Tuskegee, and again, this is fellow Tuskegee alum, even though I didn't finish, and fraternity brother, what humbly
let me just go ahead and tell you where it starts. I think that
okay, great, please.
A lot of what happened to me was, to be honest with you, it was sort of like, I don't know, sort of like divine intervention. It was not something that I planned out. It wasn't something that I dreamt of like necessarily doing, but I think it was actually like the best thing that happened to me. And I've actually had a lot of things happen to me that way, as far as sometimes you're wanting something or you think that you want it, but God or whoever you believe in might have a higher calling for you.
No, but you're not. No. Okay, but make sure you let them know how powerful. Like when you talk about helping me, and you were at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, you working for senators on the Senate side, a place that a lot of times Black folks didn't work on. They worked on the House side. Well, and now you're in Mexico. So literally,
this is what back to that goes back to what I was saying. Well, out of Tuskegee, I was I was a elementary education major. But that, like you think when you're, I guess you think when you are, when you're young, you think you want something more sort of like prestigious or something that's more like, oh, wow, that's cutting edge, et cetera, et cetera. I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher. I didn't necessarily always accept that. So coming out of Tuskegee, I got offered actually a couple of jobs. One was teaching in my hometown of Port Arthur, Texas, in the public schools, teaching just the public schools. Nope, I didn't want to do that. I decided that I wanted to go to D.C., and I wanted to be a journalist, and I wanted to work in politics. So that is what I did. So luckily, my oldest sister, was living in D.C. at the time, so I decided that I would go to D.C. and sort of like test out the waters on Capitol Hill. It was very, very difficult, to be honest with you. And, sort of like looking back in hindsight, I'm not necessarily sure that I would do that part over again. It was an eye-opening experience about not only what was in the cards for me, but just in American politics. I learned.
Well, give us the time. Give us the time frame, because a lot of things have changed. When was this?
This was in the night. Okay, this was 93, 92, 93 is when all this sort of started. Awesome. This is when DC was going through this whole thing of we didn't have gentrification then. It was really Chocolate City back then, and it was just sort of like me feeling like this freedom of like, a young black man that can conquer the world. Let me go to DC and test out the waters. So that's what I did. I went there. I didn't necessarily have the luck. A lot of times on Capitol Hill, what people don't tell you is that sometimes you have to grind behind the scenes months and months and months and months and months before you even get an opportunity. And that's what happened to me. Luckily, I had a very good friend. We grew up together. She actually had a job already on Capitol Hill. She was working with a senator. Well, a senator. She was working with a congressman from Brooklyn, New York, Ed Towns. And she was able to give me actually, quote unquote, an internship in the office. That internship turned out to be me answering the phones all day, which, you got to do what you got to do. And I ended up doing that for a while. I did it successfully. I mean, they tell you when you go, you don't have like a set, I don't know, time frame. You leave when he leaves. If he leaves at 6 o'clock, you leave at 6 o'clock. So a lot of it was just done. And mind you, I was doing this just by myself. Well, it works out. 6 months later, I ended up getting a job, and I went from one extreme to the next. I ended up as a young black man at that point in time, getting a job on the entire Senate side. That's like going from an HBCU to like, I don't know, Notre Dame. As far as like the whole contrast of like the people you see, the people who you can relate with. And mind you, I was coming from Tuskegee. So I ended up getting a job for Senator Chuck Robb of Virginia, he was a Democrat, or he still is a Democrat, but he was a very conservative Democrat. Now, to be honest with you, I was the only black person in the office of a staff of about 25 of us. The only reason that I was able to get that opportunity was because he pretty much owed a favor to Ed Towns. So I ended up working there. And they just called me a staffer. And a staffer on Capitol Hill means that you kind of like do everything. And it was in that moment, to be honest with you, I had the opportunity to actually discover myself. Because why? While I'm working on the Senate side, people are looking at me like, wow, you actually work on the Senate side? How did you get on the Senate side? While I'm working on the Senate side, during my breaks, because remember, I majored in elementary education. During my breaks, I would read to school kids. Okay? I would go to Southeast DC. I got permission. They kind of gave you credit for it in the office. Like I would go to Southeast DC and read to school kids at a school called Stanton Elementary. To be honest with you, I did that 2 days a week. And after about 2 months, the kids were like, they were hugging me, and like, don't leave, don't go, don't leave, don't go. So I was going from opposite ends of the world. I was going to this world where it was like the Senate side, and yes, sir, no, sir. And I was going and working with these kids who they didn't know where their next meal was going to come from. To let you know just how rough it was for them, this was in Southeast DC in the mid-90s, and the school was actually located at Alabama and Naylor Road in DC, Southeast. That is like technically the heartbeat of like Southeast, DC, 90s, Marion Barry, people just doing what they got to do. Ended up, they convinced me. Those kids convinced me. I ended up working on the Senate side. One day, this little boy said, I really don't want you to go. His name is Deontay McFadden, college graduate. He went to George Washington. He ended up saying, I don't want you to go. And you know what? I had to be honest with myself. I said, you know what? I'm going to work at this school. So I went, and the principal was like, of course. You sure you want to leave Capitol Hill? I'm like, actually, I'm more than sure. You know what I'm saying? So I actually started off sort of like doing this whole thing with those kids. But let me just go ahead and wind back up as far as what made me do this is that I actually realized that what I thought I really wanted to do as far as having an impact, I don't think I would have ever reached that if I didn't start teaching. That just wouldn't have happened. Burnout was inevitable. Working on Capitol Hill, the
But
lack of
wait a
respect.
minute. But let me say this, and I don't mean to interrupt because what you're taking us on this journey is awesome. Now I remember you worked at maybe I'm wrong. That's why I want to clarify the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. I
Oh,
remember
you know
that, and
what?
you were doing real estate.
You
You were
know
doing
what?
real estate. You
I'm
were
getting
buying
so
Capitol
old.
Hill, and
Right. Well, I'm
so
getting so.
give me the Capitol Hill buying real estate. You was in the real estate game back in
You
the
know what? I
mid
skipped a part of
'90s.
my whole life. In the
Yeah, man,
meantime, I'm
give me
sorry.
that.
In between those
Wind
jobs, in
it
between the
black, wind
teaching,
it black.
right. In between the teaching job and the Chuck Robb job, I worked at the CAP. I worked at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, where I was. You would say that I was a scholarship coordinator. Well, they have a fellowship program there, and they have a internship program. The internship is for the undergrads, and the fellowship is for the graduate students, law students, potential PhD students, or people who
Right,
want to learn
and you looked
math.
out for me there, and then I still remember how you even helped people get married. Like, bro, there was
Yeah.
so much of what
Yeah, you know
your
what? I've
hands
done.
was on so many
Yeah.
things, touching so many. You took a political
Oh
environment and
yeah.
made it a
You know what
community
though?
environment. No,
Sinclair,
you
I'm gonna be honest
really,
with you.
yeah.
I worked at what? I worked there for 3 years before I started teaching. Yeah, that was in between. So yeah, I think because that's such a far, I don't know. It was just a different part of my life. It was a very important part of my life. I just spoke with somebody who I actually helped there. Her name is Trelon Shorter. She just said, "Oh, yeah, I'm in school again. I'm getting my master's." Blah 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 blah. This is we're talking about 20. I don't know how many years ago it was, but it's like I've come across some very very successful people in it all. Um, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that it served a purpose, even though I sort of like blocked that part of my,
Yeah,
almost blocked it.
Challenge.
And,
You got a lot. You got folks who've done so
yeah,
many things
yeah,
at a high
Trelon.
level that
Yeah, these people
you
were running.
yeah.
These people kind of like running, like Shavar.
Shavar Jeffries,
Yeah, Shavar
yeah,
Jeffries, he ran for mayor.
man.
He's like not. I want to say what he teaches where. I think he teaches at Temple.
Whatever he's doing like next level, like
They do it. Everybody's
lawyer.
doing next
Yeah,
level stuff, and I'm just like, yeah. In the end of the day, I'm looking at where I am right now. I'm a teacher, so I mean, so long story short, yes, I worked in politics successfully for a long time, but it was just grindy. And I ended up just the whole time I maintained a relationship with kids, and after I realized that, you know what, this is glitz and glamour. Yes, at that time, Jesse Jackson is standing right here. Yes, Marion Barry standing right next to me. Yes, I just had a full conversation with Floyd Flake. That was cool. But at some point, I realized that I would rather be reading a story to some unknown kid, in Southeast, and talking to his grandma and convincing his grandma to let me teach him how to play chess at the end of the school day.
yeah, no, yeah. No, I remember you had the chess club, but you also
Yes,
had like you was buying real estate on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. So
And this is
anyway,
all before you were like 10 years old. Like you were shaking and moving at a very high level. And I didn't even bring up your All-American football, your hit pass, and all the things you did. Like literally, this is all crammed in a very short moment. So I'm just trying to help people get the context. And how did you end up in Mexico? Teaching some of the most powerful billionaires' children's and things like that.
So here we go. I ended up working at this. I was working at Stanton. Now we back at school. So I ended up working at Stanton after I left Capitol Hill. People are like, "What's the matter? Like, how did you leave? You work at a school in Southeast?" Blah 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 blah. I'm working with these kids. I'm just doing what I got to do. I'm just doing what I have to do to save them. One of the things that I really really like is chess. So I started a chess team in Southeast DC. People laughed at us. After 2.5 years of having a chess team, we were like DMV champs. I mean, we beating private schools. It was kind of like that movie thing that you had going on, or that you've maybe seen before. Like these kids were just smart. They were just killing people in chess. These are kids who never played chess before. And the reason I started that is because it just helped them with their concentration. But anyway, ended up working there, happy. At that time, I had bought a house on Capitol Hill. Because remember, we're not talking about Capitol Hill 2021. We're talking about Capitol Hill 1994. There were two different things going on there. Like nobody wanted to live there. Long story short, after working at this school for about 4 years, Stanton Elementary, my principal calls me to the office and she says to me, "Hey, listen, I have something that I need you to do." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like thinking I'm gonna get a new project or maybe even a raise. She said, "We want you to learn Spanish." And I'm like, "Spanish? Like, why would I want to learn Spanish?" You know what I'm saying? Where that come? She was like, "We're expecting like a whole influx of Central Americans to come, because they leaving, like when we need somebody to learn Spanish, or at least try, because I was the youngest on staff, et cetera, et cetera." So anyway, they ended up sending me to learn Spanish in Guatemala for supposedly for 4 to 5 weeks. I didn't have a passport. I mean, I wasn't this kid who you think of now, like you see these kids online, like, "Oh, I want to go to Bali. I want to teach in whatever." No, I was just trying to stay in the United States of America and work on Capitol Hill. I mean, or live on Capitol Hill at that time and just be a regular African American guy. At that time, I was just trying to hang out on U Street and teach. So it was like, I'm good. So I ended up having to go because they kind of forced me to go. But something happened. As soon as I stepped off the plane in Guatemala, I immediately fell in love. I fell in love so much so that I at the end of my 4 weeks, I didn't return to DC. I ended up staying in Guatemala, and I ended up pretty much. I found for the first time I listened to really my intuition. I ended up staying there. I did go back to DC for a brief moment. I went back to sell my house and make a whole bunch of money. But that's a whole different story. Because at that time, gentrification was just started. So I sell my house. I go back to Guatemala. I buy a house in Guatemala, which I still have.
Go ahead.
And I'm living there. I'm doing good. I'm teaching at this all-girls. I'm teaching English at this all-girls school. Great. Totally great. Well, fast forward a year later, one of my friends, he's still my friend today. At that time, he lived in New York. Now he lives in LA. He was working in advertising, and he just randomly had a conference here in Mexico City. He was like, "Hey, check it out. Come to Mexico City. We can hang out." I'm like, "Mexico City? I don't know nothing about Mexico City. I'm not interested." And he was like, "Dude, cut through. I'm like, I can hook you up with a hotel." I'm like, "Okay, cool. If it's going to be free, I'm down." So I came to Mexico City. Didn't know anything about it. Come to Mexico City. I'm here for 3 days. I'm in love with Mexico City. You know what? If I can find, I have 2 more days to be here. If I can find a job in 2 days, I'm going to stay. I found a job in 1 day, and that was 23 years ago, and I'm still here. Yeah, that school that I found a job at, I taught 6th grade there for 4 years, and I was the principal. I ended up being the principal of that school for 5 years. Yeah, and then I later on went to a school, the American school. Now, these are just not little schools. These are like schools for kids who are their parents are diplomats, or the Latin American president of like Ford or whatever. So I've actually been here. I've been in Mexico City for almost 24 years, and I think it's been the best thing that's happened to me, even though it was totally unplanned. I mean, at the end of the day, it was in the cards for me, like if you had told me, I guess 25 years ago that I would have been a principal, like there are no black people at none of these places. It's like I'm the only black, not only I like the only black person. And most of the time I'm kind of like the only male because I was working in elementary schools. And in a lot of cases I was like the only foreigner. So I'm just like, what is happening here? And they're just like literally when I was and these people are not just like these are not your typical Mexicans. Like for example, I taught Carlos Slim is for many years he's been one of the richest men in the world. His grandkids, they went to my school. Like these are all millionaires. And I'm standing on stage one day talking to all these people, And I'm thinking, do they realize that I'm black? You know, like, and it's just like, what's happening right now? Like, I have to catch myself. But they were just like, you know what? They just let me know, like, you good at what you do, so we don't care, whatever, you know. So, long story short, it's just been an amazing experience for me. At this point in time, I guess I've seen a lot of people come and go. Seriously, I think when I came to Mexico City, I don't think I saw a black person in the first maybe like 10 years. I mean, and at the time, I didn't speak Spanish. People they don't, like, this is another country. You don't come talking to me in English. You speak Spanish. So, yes, I can actually say that I speak Spanish. That wasn't planned for me, but they're like, you know, when I'm not in school, that's what I speak. I speak Spanish. So it's just been it's been an eye opener for me. It's like, it's really been a blessing for me, and it's just changed me in so many ways.
We connected back with the family. I know we had talked, and there's been dealing with the storms, and it was so interesting being from Texas, so close to Mexico, and getting there by way of DC via Guatemala is interesting. What are some of the things that you've learned, experienced as it relates to like relationships and family that that would help people understand some of that dynamic?
You mean as far as for me living here?
Yeah, living there, your mom, your brothers,
It's definitely
like
changed
keeping
my
out.
perspective. Well, it's definitely changed my perspective on family. I mean, I'm from Texas, I'm a Southern boy. So, family in the South, I mean, it's just the black community in general, but specifically in the South, it's, we're kind of like tight knit. And it was no different in my family. But I think that what happened here for people of my age bracket, it wasn't, I learned, Mexicans have taught me that not only for people of my age bracket to maintain that tight knit sort of community, they, no matter what age you are, they are always willing to sacrifice for family. And I think that sometimes in the black community, especially with the younger generations, it's kind of like they're not willing to make that sacrifice. And when I say sacrifice, I mean things like, I mean, you'll have a 30-year-old who live with his parents, not because he wants to, because his parents have gotten older and he realizes that, you know what, if I don't live with my parents, they might not be able to pay the bills. They just sacrifice, and it's a whole thing of, like, I have a friend, I have a close friend. He has, he's probably like, I guess he's in the mid-40s, but he and his wife work. And it's, daycare, not only in America, but just in general, can be expensive. Well, his 17-year-old niece keeps the baby. You know what I'm saying? She keeps the baby. She lives with them. She just graduated from high school. She's going to college at night. So this is the routine for them. They get up, they go to work, they leave her with their two infant kids. I think one is 3 and one is like 4. She takes care of the kids all day. They come home at about 5. They eat together from 5 to 6. She goes to night school from like 7 to 10. That's their routine. I mean, they're intertwined. I don't know. I guess they have a saying in Spanish, which it says like, it says juntos pero no revueltos, which means like we're together but we're not, like, it's like scrambled eggs. Like, we're together, we are the egg, but we're not scrambled together. Like, we're together but we're apart. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they have a chain going on, and she is going to graduate from college, and they are going to benefit from her sacrifices. She's 17. She could be doing whatever all day. But there's no way she will do that. Like, there's absolutely no way. It's just in the cards. Like that. It's not like she's forced to do it. But in turn, while she's keeping her kids, They go to work, they don't pay a babysitter, but she gets a place to stay for free. And it just works that way. I'm not sure that you would have like a 17-year-old, typical, not only African American, but just 17-year-old in the U.S. who would consistently do that. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's taught me about family. And it's just taught me they sacrifice like that. It's like there's no like yeah, Sundays. There's no way that they won't be with their family. That's just like that's not even an option. It's like just and me just by myself. I'm like, sure you can't. You sure you can't go? There's just not even an option. Like it's almost like, why are you even asking me to like go hang out on a Sunday? I'm with my mom, and like it's not offensive. It's just like it's a different way to look at things.
Bruh, that's an amazing way to look at things. And I tell you what, we got to close it up now. But this has been just a great intro. I pray this won't be the last time we share. There's so many stories and so many lessons learned that would be so powerful. And we got to have you Black on I Love Black People to share it all the way in Mexico and Mexico City. And of course, we definitely always.
I got a bunch of stories to tell, man.
And we need you, and we appreciate all your support.
About social norms, et cetera, et cetera. So whenever you want to see me again, I'll be more than happy to be here.
Well, thank you, Clint. I appreciate you, brother, and thank you for all the love and all the help you've given me. And just with that being said, to our listeners, as I always close out, I am because, hey, Cleveland Gibson is. Thank you so much, Cleveland.
Well, thank you for.
This is I Love Black People Radio on H.U.R. Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to Banneker Communities.